speak a little bit about the experience now, because people aren't coming in to the committee meetings. A room full of people on a particular side makes an impression on people sometimes. And now
Yeah,
that's not happening. I would think it'd be advantageous to the Republicans, who are throwing out a lot of really contentious legislation, and the people aren't allowed to come in. Well, they're allowed to, but because of COVID, people aren't coming in because they want to stay alive.
yeah, it's a challenge. I mean, so I covered, just an example, I covered a subcommittee meeting, and the subcommittees, by the way, are just really the only point in the political process where the public can is invited to come in and comment on a bill in public in front of a public meeting. And so those subcommittees are important. So the constitutional amendment dealing with abortion, the only way to speak in the House is to be there in person, and the only people who were there in person were supporters of the legislation, who were, maybe tend to be less concerned about COVID, and the situation in the Capitol, where there were a lot of people, especially at the beginning of the session, there were a lot of people not wearing masks. There was so yeah, you end up getting a one-sided conversation, and what happens then, is that you then see the other side of the coin being presented in other forums, perhaps outside of those meetings. So yeah,
Which are
that's a
less
challenge.
effective.
Yeah, it might be less effective. Not that in this particular case, I don't think that the lawmakers who were advancing this legislation were open to being swayed,
Right.
but that's, these groups have an opportunity to speak in public and be quoted by the media, and potentially sway public opinion. And ultimately, it is the voters who are going to vote on constitutional amendments anyway. So yeah, that is a concern. It's an opportunity missed, I think, for groups that are worried about being able to go into the Capitol. And even when you're not talking about sharply partisan issues, you've got people who just cannot come to the Capitol. So issues, for example, that affect people who are sick, or people who are elderly and particularly vulnerable to the virus. I would not advise any of those folks to set foot in the Capitol. They've had more than a half a dozen cases already of people testing positive. And, I think there's a question about whether all of the cases have been reported publicly. I don't think they have. So I do think that there is a concern, first of all, that public access is being curtailed this year. And secondly, there's a concern that, lawmakers might take the wrong lesson from this time of COVID, and that they might, incorporate some of these, public distancing measures permanently after the pandemic, because I don't know that there ever will be a time when we can just look at this and say, okay, this pandemic is absolutely over. I think it's going to linger on for quite a while. And so, public access to the Capitol is something that I think we all have to be concerned about.